There are friendships that the world witnesses, and then there are friendships that the world never truly understands. The kind forged not in the spotlight, but in the quiet corners of grief, laughter, and shared vulnerability. For over 3 decades, Elton John has carried a truth about his relationship with Princess Diana, a truth more layered, more painful, and more beautiful than any tabloid headline ever captured. Now, in his own words, through interviews, his autobiography, and rare public moments of raw honesty, the full picture is finally emerging. And it is nothing short of extraordinary. The story begins not with fanfare, but with a dance. It was 1981, and Britain was intoxicated by the romance of the century. Prince Charles was preparing to wed Diana Spencer, a shy, luminous 20-year-old who had barely stepped out of obscurity. The entire nation was swept into a fairy tale. But behind the glittering pageantry, a quieter and far more lasting story was beginning to take shape. Elton John, already a global superstar by then, was no stranger to royal circles. He had performed for aristocrats, shared evenings with Princess Margaret at Kensington Palace, and even exchanged jokes with Prince Philip. Yet despite all the grandeur, he always felt like an outsider in those rooms, too loud, too flamboyant, too different. That feeling changed at Prince Andrew's 21st birthday celebration held inside Windsor Castle. Diana Spencer walked into that ballroom, and something shifted. In his autobiography Me, Elton described her as having an extraordinary social ease, a rare gift for making anyone around her feel instantly at home. Within minutes of their introduction, the two were laughing together like old friends. They ended up mimicking the Charleston together on the dance floor, a spontaneous, slightly ridiculous moment that even drew a smile from the Queen herself. Elton later said it felt as though he had known her his entire life. That night planted the seed of one of the most unlikely and enduring friendships of the 20th century. What made their connection so powerful was not fame or status. It was recognition. Both Elton and Diana, despite living at the very center of public attention, were profoundly lonely people. Elton was fighting battles that he hadn't yet fully admitted to himself: addiction, deep insecurity beneath the glitter, and the exhausting performance of being a larger-than-life personality at all times. Diana, meanwhile, was slowly disappearing inside the rigid machinery of the royal institution. Her marriage to Prince Charles, so eagerly celebrated by the world, was privately unraveling. The palace expected silence. It expected composure. It expected duty. Diana was a human being who needed love, honesty, and warmth, and she was receiving very little of any of it. When they were together, none of that performance was required. Elton recalled that Diana was the best dinner companion he ever had, wickedly funny, genuinely curious, and refreshingly indiscreet. She loved gossip and wasn't afraid to roll her eyes at the stuffiness of the aristocracy. She teased Elton mercilessly about his outrageous wardrobe. He, in turn, adored her company in a way that had nothing to do with her title or her fame. He simply liked who she was as a person. That mutual freedom from pretense was rare for both of them. In the outside world, they were icons, objects of fascination, targets of criticism, and symbols of things far larger than themselves. With each other, they were just two people who understood what it meant to be trapped inside a public image that didn't entirely reflect who they really were. As the 1980s progressed, their friendship deepened through shared purpose. The AIDS crisis was devastating communities across the world, and at a time when ignorance and fear dominated public discourse, both Elton and Diana chose to stand on the right side of history. For Elton, it was intensely personal. He had lost friends to the disease and understood the stigma that accompanied it. For Diana, it was a matter of basic human compassion, something no palace handbook could suppress. In 1987, Diana visited an AIDS ward at Middlesex Hospital in London. She sat with patients, held their hands, and looked them in the eye with genuine warmth. She did not wear gloves. In an era when many people still believed AIDS could be contracted through casual touch, that single gesture sent a message to the entire world that no government campaign ever could. Elton witnessed this and was moved to his core. He later said that Diana's courage in that moment changed the public perception of the disease forever. It was the instant he understood just how extraordinary she truly was, not as a princess, but as a human being. They attended charity galas together, advocated alongside each other, and used their shared visibility to draw attention to causes that were often ignored by the powerful institutions surrounding them. Their alliance was never performative. It was rooted in genuine conviction, and it made both of them more effective advocates because of the authenticity behind it. But friendships, even the most profound ones, are not immune to fracture. By the mid-1990s, the pressures bearing down on both of them had become immense. Diana's marriage had collapsed publicly and painfully. Her divorce from Prince Charles was finalized in August 1996, stripping her of the title Her Royal Highness and leaving her navigating an entirely new kind of existence, no longer fully royal, yet never truly free of royal scrutiny. She was surrounded by advisors with competing agendas and a press corps that followed her every move. Elton, meanwhile, was in the midst of his own complicated chapter, still battling the remnants of addiction and exhaustion, even as he channeled his energy into his music and charitable work. The rupture came through a charity project that Elton had invested deeply in, a coffee table book of rock photography, with all proceeds directed to an AIDS foundation. He asked Diana to write the foreword. For him, it wasn't a casual request. It was an invitation for her to stand publicly alongside a cause they had both championed for years. Diana initially agreed. Then, without warning, she withdrew. A formal letter arrived from her office, polite and distant. Palace advisors, Elton later learned, had objected to certain photographs in the book, images of semi-nude male models that they deemed incompatible with the image of a senior royal figure, even one in the process of separating from that institution. Elton was hurt. Deeply. He understood the pressure she was under, but the withdrawal still stung. He sent her a message expressing his disappointment. Diana, feeling cornered between loyalty to a friend and the forces bearing down on her life, responded with what he later described as a terse, cold letter. It was sharp in a way he hadn't expected from her. And then there was silence. For months, neither of them reached out. Elton admitted years later on Larry King Live that pride had prevented him from simply picking up the phone. "We were both too proud," he said. "I could have called her. I didn't." He also acknowledged that he later came to believe palace pressure had played a significant role in Diana's withdrawal, that she may not have made that decision entirely freely. But in the moment, the hurt was real, and it calcified into distance. It took tragedy to break the silence. On July 15, 1997, Gianni Versace, one of the most celebrated fashion designers in the world and a close mutual friend of both Elton and Diana, was shot and killed outside his Miami Beach home. The loss was shattering for both of them. Diana had known Versace well, had worn his creations, and had trusted him as a confidant in a world where genuine trust was extraordinarily hard to come by. Elton was similarly devastated. At Versace's funeral in Milan, Diana spotted Elton sitting alone in his grief. The months of silence, the cold letter, the unresolved hurt, in that moment, none of it mattered. She walked over to him and took his hand. "I'm so sorry," she said. "It was silly, our falling out. Let's be friends again." Elton later recounted that the moment was profoundly moving, and then, in the way only Diana could, she immediately dissolved the solemnity with humor. In the same breath of reconciliation, she leaned over and whispered that she would absolutely love a polo mint. They laughed. Just like that, the rift dissolved. They made plans to meet again soon. They had things to catch up on, conversations to resume, laughter to return to. Neither of them knew that they had less than 6 weeks left. In the early hours of August 31, 1997, Elton John was woken by the sound of his fax machine. He read a message expressing condolences and turned on the television in confusion. What he saw changed him forever. Princess Diana had died in a car crash in Paris. She was 36 years old. Elton has spoken about the devastation of that morning in various interviews over the years. The disbelief. The guilt. The grief. Just weeks earlier, they had been laughing together at Versace's funeral, rebuilding something precious. Now there was nothing left to rebuild. The Spencer family asked Elton to perform at her funeral. He agreed immediately. Together with his longtime lyricist Bernie Taupin, he reworked Candle in the Wind, originally written as a tribute to Marilyn Monroe, transforming it into a farewell to a woman he loved as a friend. On September 6, 1997, Elton stood inside Westminster Abbey before an estimated global television audience of 2.5 billion people. His hands were shaking. He has said that he made a decision before he began: he would not look up. If he looked at the congregation, at the princes, at the coffin draped in flowers, he would not be able to finish. So he looked only at the piano keys, and he sang, "Goodbye, England's Rose." He has never performed the song publicly since that day. He has said he never will. The recording became the best-selling physical single in history, with over 33 million copies sold. Every penny went to the Diana, Princess of Wales Memorial Fund. Elton has said plainly that he derives no pride from that fact. For him, it is not a success. It is a scar. Years have passed. Decades, now. Elton has spoken about Diana in interviews, in his autobiography, and in rare moments of public reflection that carry a weight no prepared statement ever could. What emerges consistently is not nostalgia, but something rawer: regret about the wasted months of silence, gratitude for the years of genuine friendship, and a quiet, abiding grief for a person who deserved far better than the world gave her. He has remained close to Prince William and Prince Harry. When Harry and Meghan faced relentless press intrusion, Elton was among the first to speak out publicly in their defense, explicitly connecting their experience to what Diana endured. "I feel a deep sense of duty to protect Harry and his family from the same press intrusion that ultimately contributed to Diana's death," he said. It was not a political statement. It was a promise kept to a friend who could no longer hear it. The truth that Elton John has been breaking his silence to tell, piece by piece, over many years, is not a dramatic revelation. It is something quieter and more human than that. It is the truth that great friendships are fragile. That pride is a thief. That time is not guaranteed. That the most important phone call is always the one you haven't made yet. He and Diana were two outsiders who found something real in each other, something honest and unguarded that neither of them could easily find anywhere else. They argued, they drifted, they found their way back. And then she was gone before either of them could say everything they still had left to say.